satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me?
It's beyond common sense. It's Lanny Sense with Lanny Swerglo, KCAA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist, worst nightmare. Well, welcome to tonight's show. We are so glad that you can join us. Yes, white Christian nationalist, worst nightmare. That's me. I'm my own worst nightmare as well. Hey, anyway, listen, we've got a great guest, Francisco Ramos. He is going to be on with us in just a few minutes, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Lanny Sense. We are so pleased you could join us. If you would like to call in during the show at any time, you've got some comments, questions of our listener, or some other things you want to bring about, it's very easy. Just call 909-383-1000 or 909-383-9000. That's easy to do. Just give it a call. We'd love to have you call on in with us. Hey, I just want to give you a little heads up. You know, this is, of course, a cannabis show as well as all the other things we do. And I just got a listing from Cal Normal of 17, get this, 17 bills have been introduced in the 2025 California State Legislature. And you think they might be introducing some bills that are kind of make things work better? Well, let's say here, let me run you down a few of them here. There's AB 8, which is about industrial hemp. There's AB 564, which is about cannabis excise tax rate increase repeal. So that's a good one. They want to repeal the rate increase. I hope that one goes through. AB 632, local ordinances, administrative fines or penalties. AB 686, cannabis appointees, prohibited activities. So if you're a cannabis appointee or something, there's certain things you can't go. I hope it's not smoking cannabis. AB 762, disposable vapor inhalation device prohibition. You know, this is crazy. They're attacking all these the vapor devices, you know, and they're saying you can't have flavored devices. And said, you know, vapor devices for tobacco smokers are really important because if you use a vape instead of a cigarette, you're significantly reducing your chance of getting lung cancer to practically zero. The danger from cigarette smoking is the smoke, not the nicotine. The nicotine is what you get if you just vape, but they don't seem to care about that. Then there is AB 895, which has to do with cannabis donations. I hope that's going to continue what's going. And AB 998, household hazardous waste vape pen. So your vape pen's a hazardous waste. AB 1027, cannabis license testing laboratories. Got to make sure they're okay. AB 1103, controlled substances research. Research is always good, I would think. AB 1065, credit card transaction fees, tax payments. Well, it would be great if you could use your credit card at a dispensary instead of always having to pay cash. AB 1103, controlled substances research, we said that. AB 1209, workers' compensation, cannabis industry. Well, workers got to be covered by whatever it is, state accident insurance fund or whatever they call it. AB 1332, medicinal cannabis shipments, just medicinal cannabis shipments are being treated differently. AB 1397, hemp, low-dose hemp drinks. AB 1496, Cannabis Task Force, Senate Bill 378, online marketplaces, illicit cannabis reporting and liability. Senate Bill 479, it just says cannabis, doesn't say what it's doing. And finally, SB 501, Household Hazardous Waste Producer Responsibility Act, and it has to do with vaporizers. And so there's a whole bunch of bills, and it's just getting started. And of course, you know, the cannabis industry is on the ropes. It is incredible. I'm glad to see there's some bill that's trying to reduce the taxes. They got to reduce taxes way more in order for it to become competitive with the illegal market. So anyway, I'll try to keep you up to date as the show goes along. Not tonight, of course. What's what's going on with the state legislature and all the cannabis bills. Cal Normal will be holding their Citizens Lobby Day, I believe, in May or March. I'll bring that up on next week's show. But you are encouraged. They do it once a year. They have on a Monday. They have people come up and you contact their state legislatures, and they have all kinds of. It's really a fun thing. I've gone to several of those things. There, you meet a lot of great people, and you really get some really good things done. So I'll bring up some information about that on future shows. But as if you've been following the news, there's been all kinds of things going on in Trump world, MAGA world, that's just driving everybody up a pole. And everything from siding with Russia. Did you read about the UN vote where the United States sided with Russia in the UN vote? It's unbelievable what is absolutely going on. And then with this Elon Musk, firing all these people and this kind of stuff and making them send out emails. And it's just absolute chaos going on in the federal government. And I think one of these days it may just collapse under its own weight. We will see what happens. But we have a fascinating young man to join us tonight. His name is Francisco Ramos. He is very, very active in Democratic Party circles. He's very active in the Young Democrats. He's been active in the Riverside County Democratic Party with the past Democrats. So without further ado, welcome to Francisco Ramos to Lanny Sense. Welcome, Francisco.
Thanks, Lanny.
We are so glad to have you up here. I went with Francisco last Saturday into Redlands, where the Riverside County Democratic Party was holding their ADEM elections. Now, ADEM elections is where they elect people to go to the state's Democratic Central Committee for their annual state convention. And this is where a lot of policy is made for the Democratic Party and where they organize to get Democrats elected and all this kind of stuff. And remember, here in California, the Democratic Party is a trifecta. It controls the legislature, it controls the state, it's the governor's office, and it also controls the state court. So the Democratic Party plays a major role in what happens here. And these people who get elected ADEMs help set the policy for the Democratic Party. Tell me, Francisco, give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, I've been an activist for quite some time. I've been not only an activist in the Democratic Party, but also with the Student Senate for California Community Colleges way back in the day. My activism really arises from the recession when, as a college student in a community college, I was quite concerned at the cuts and how that was impacting students that were trying to transition into a new economy and new jobs. That led to other things, and also being a part of the Riverside Community College District Board as a student representative. I was able to meet a lot of influential folks that were a part of the party, including folks like Mark Takano, and it really inspired me to continue on. But the last 15 years have been an interesting time to be a person not only in politics, but also as an active citizen participating in the local converse about what everything is doing statewide. And it's led me to continue my role. So I've led campaigns, worked with different nonpartisan and also Democratic candidates running at the local level, like city council, up to state senate. And as you know, I've been a delegate myself. So an interesting time, and it's still time for us to keep our foot on the pedal here and to make sure we're contacting as many people as we can on every side to make sure they know about exactly what's going on.
Well, one of the major things, of course, is you are involved with the Young Democrats, and young voters are critical to the Democratic Party. And part of the problem, of course, is that in the last election, at least for the men, we lost a lot of young people to Trump. What do you think's going on here?
That's a great question. I literally just aged out of Young Democrats this year, so no longer a Young Democrat, but I really feel very positive and proud about my history. I think it's a former chair of our Riverside County Young Democrats, but also somebody that's continued to attend those meetings and see kind of what the pulse is for folks that are age 35 and under. Young Democrats includes also people that are at the college level and the high school level as well. So there are there's a few young people that are active statewide with those different organizations. But what's my opinion on why we lost some young folks, and young men in particular, to Trump? I really do think that we are not succeeding correctly as a county, as a system, as a Democratic group in those circles that they are now participating in. So different podcasts, different types of online venues that are entertaining and maybe kind of more masculine in the negative sense and maybe more toxic is appealing to people that are not actively out in the community quite as much. And I think we really need to broadcast ourselves as young Dems and others that are younger Dems, that these are just not opinions that only happen in certain silos. We have to be wherever they're at. So Joe Rogan's podcast is a big one, full of misinformation, full of good guests sometimes, such as Bernie Sanders or others that are qualified individuals, and many that are not, like our new health secretary, Kennedy Jr. So it's concerning, and I think it's because we are not in those spaces. Democrats sometimes shy away from being a part of that kind of online discourse because maybe they don't always believe or have good facts behind them, but we have to engage. If we don't engage, then men that may not actually be in our kind of circles or with us in different types of life in general need to hear from the other side. And so, for example, I applaud Senator Sanders, who did go on the Joe Rogan show and has been on others and gave our perspective about why the Trump agenda and others is going to affect everybody's life, including young people, and their ability to get into the middle-class economy and lifestyle. So we have to engage, and we got to be wherever they're at, and I think we have not done that so far.
That's very true, and yet, it's interesting. The RCDP, the Riverside County Democratic Party, seems to be doing pretty well with getting more young people involved. I've been with the party since 2012, and I think I see more young people involved with the party than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, I agree. You're absolutely correct. I think our leadership here with our chair, plus also the work that the party has done since your time and my time as well, I came in 2016, has really been built on trying to get new people that have been interested in maybe democratic politics, but just also interested in preserving our way of life. As we know from 2016, all the different attacks that Trump did on our middle-class lifestyle, our economy, healthcare, deregulation continued, and now it's on hyperdrive with Musk and Doge. And the party did a really good job of reaching out to different clubs and different organizations that wanted to get their young folks involved with at least trying something that encouraged other voters to see what actually was fact and what actually is happening because of these different transitions with the Trump administration. So they've done a good job. There's a lot of work to do, but it's old-fashioned style politics. It's going out, it's meeting people, it's shaking hands, having conversations, and also being in cyberspace and on TikTok and different areas that those people may be only in, like Twitch, for example, or different gaming applications. So I think they're doing a good job, and there's a lot of work to do, too, but I'm happy and proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, what always puzzles me, especially about with young people, is the climate change things. I mean, it's people in their 20s and 30s. They're the ones that are going to be really impacted with the dangers of damages caused by climate change around 2050 and that kind of stuff. And yet, I've read some things about young people saying, well, I want cheaper gas, and that's why we're voting for Trump. What's happening? I mean, aren't young people still concerned about life's going to be like 20 years from now because of climate change?
I think that's a layered question. I don't want to speak for all young people, but what I can say is that there is a current crisis of information, and I think also a lack of faith of what we perceive and receive as information online. The last 20 years of social media have really, in my opinion, been a degradation of the norms and systems that we took for fact. Our established news organizations, those that were fact-checked by other news organizations, and different types of things that we understood before social media really got big and became a part of our everyday life. Now we have gone into a descendants of people that are in their own silos, listening to their own people that have their own perspective because of algorithms that are not controlled by us. So, for example, like in MySpace days, going back to my early high school days, you knew where your network was because you controlled it. Here with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, the whole thing, it's run by the corporation, run by the algorithm, and they're giving you more of what you're already interacting with. And if you're reacting, they give you more of that inflammatory kind of speech and information. So people are not getting it. They're just not getting it. I know for many Americans, they still do, understand and know what a real newspaper is and what real activism and journalism looks like with facts and believe in it. But a new generation has grown up in this really terrible algorithm-based type of cycle that does not give you the accurate information and stories. So I think people are concerned with climate, and I think they're concerned with what will happen if there is continuing global warming. However, it may not be the same kind of reaction or enthusiasm to work on the problem if you're not getting that in your daily feed. And that may not necessarily be that person's problem, but be also that many corporations are making money off making the society reactive to negative information. So we have to work on that. I wish there was federal regulation that made at least some attempt to figure out a way that the corporations would feel more incentivized to actually do fact-checking, like was happening under the Biden administration and before in other Democratic administrations. But now that we know that Trump and them are all friends, it's completely out the window. So we have to be cautious, we have to be careful, and talk about climate change and really continue to illustrate how much of an issue that is and why my generation and those that are coming after me are going to be most affected by it.
Yeah, and what's interesting, of course, is what's going on with all this cutting jobs in the federal government and closing agencies and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to save, they claim they're going to save up to $2 trillion. I find that hard to believe. But the reason all these savings are being done in order to give tax breaks to billionaires, and yet people don't seem to understand this or even care or what's going on. I mean, that's what all these savings are. Right now, the Republicans are tying themselves in a knot. They want to slash, we spend $800 billion a year on Medicaid, and they want to end the program or cut it way down. And people don't seem to recognize how impactful that's going to be on their lives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, it's the same problem, I think, across all age groups. If you're in one group and one kind of information stream on your social media platform, you're going to receive more of that. So it's a confirmation bias, and it's a silo of only what you want to hear. And that's dangerous for everybody. It's dangerous for even folks that have our kind of viewpoint and perspective because we're not hearing information maybe that we should be considering. So there and again, until there's dramatic cuts or until people are starting to miss payments and the program success is falling down, as I think when really most of America and people that are in states that maybe don't have as many safeguards as we do in California, they're going to feel that brunt maybe even more than we would because there are not the subsidies of state programs that might help as well, and they're going to be more impacted than I think some others. So it's really terrible that might have to be what happens in order for us to realize what exactly the Trump administration is doing as a free gift and handout to billionaires and the top tier of the 1%. But without any kind of government regulation or any, at least at this point, current effort to try to fight that, I don't know what else will happen. Now, I am encouraged by the House Democrats. I'm encouraged by their continuance to be one unified block and trying to block any kind of cuts that might come from the next budget. I think that's really great. But I think we need that, and we also need everyone that can to really go and call all your congressmen, even in states that are not your representatives, and let them know that this is such a critical program. And we are watching what they're going to be doing to vote any kind of cuts for Medicare or Social Security or our different programs that are like that. We're watching. We're taking note. We will continue to be in those town halls and to call those Congress folks and tell them that they're not doing correctly if they're acting against their constituents in those programs. So we got to keep our foot on the pedal.
Hey, Sam, you've been unusually quiet here. You got any comments or things you want to chime in with?
Well, it'd be better if we could see him. I know it's a radio.
Oh, well, he's calling on the telephones. We can't see him.
Okay. What is your plan? Your communications plan?
Well, I don't speak for any organization, and I'm not a person that has that authority to say that locally. But what I can say as a person, as an activist, my plan is to make sure that people that are my age and any kind of voter that's out there needs to hear our perspective, needs to hear the Democratic Party's perspective, and also one that wants to keep government effective for everybody, regardless of how you actually voted. Our system of government works for everyone in America, regardless of how you vote. And that really means the ability to have secure banking, the ability to have, a good Social Security program that's there for our retirees and people that are disabled, to make sure the Veterans Administration works effectively, to make sure that the parks, our national parks and systems continue to be effectively cared for and used by everybody that may not have means, right? It should be a means access thing. So that's what I think right now is not being communicated. And I plan to do that as an individual
May I
activist
interrupt
to
you?
anybody that may want
Because
to talk to me and let them know that that is not being cared for right now under this current administration.
Go ahead, Sam.
I would like to interrupt you because you said something at the very beginning that is not true. The system of government in the United States does not work for everybody. If the system of government worked, Trump would be in prison, not in the White House. I've been there I'm not there anymore. I'm what's called an expatriate. I'm not in the U.S. anymore. After 50 years in Democratic politics, the last 35 of it in California Democratic Party, I've lost faith in my Democrats because they couldn't enforce the law against Donald Trump. The government doesn't work. The government of the United States does not work for everybody. That is the big problem. It works for those people who have power. Money is power, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, I used to say, people used to ask me, what's the difference between Republicans and Democrats? And I would say, actually, there's very little, but in what the difference is, it's big. Republicans put money over people, and Democrats place people, have a priority of people over money. It's not that way anymore. Republicans and Democrats place a priority on money over people. And it's because of the young people, like you just said, they want cheaper gas. They don't give a damn about 10, 20, 30 years from now when everybody's going to be dying because of global warming. They just want gas now, and I would challenge you to answer me that issue and one others, okay? First, the issue, this government does not work for everybody. It works for the rich. And it works for the rich Democrats and the rich Republicans. The second thing is, the best quote I've heard in the last 3 months is this: the United States is not a country. It's not a nation. The United States is a business. The only positive aspect of the world culture that the United States is number one in is money. Everything else is negative that the United States is number one in. So how do you think that this can be changed? Because I've given up. I've left the United States last week, and I'm the first person in 7 generations of United States citizens to leave the country, because I will not live in the United States under Trump, because the Democrats are powerless, feckless, threatless, and I have the credentials to be able to say this.
Yeah, Sam's
So
been
my
very active.
challenge to you as a young person is, what is your plan? What are you going to do about this?
What's the big picture, Francisco?
Well, let me address some of the comments here, which I hear your frustration, and we all feel it. I mean, that's palpable across age, across identity, and I think across party. But what I meant by the government working for everybody is that our systems generally have worked for everybody in a consistent manner up until now. And what I mean by that is we've had secure banking, we've had a secure administration of Social Security, we've had a secure administration of veterans benefits, secure administration of forestry, secure administration of federal grants and projects that have benefited everybody. Okay, so from that perspective, that is true. Now, what I would say for young folks that are concerned about the climate is that I disagree with your assumption that people are only concerned about cheap gas. I think very uninformed people that have no actual ability or do not have people in their life that actually talk to them about the actual policies of what happens in good government believe that that is the only thing that they need to worry about, and that through a presidential change alone, you can change the gas prices. We know that's absolutely not true. If that was true, Joe Biden would have made it $1.20 and would be the president today, because they would assume that was true. But that's not how people work, and it's not how people think. And third, I'm not a representative for the party, so I can't tell you what the plan is. But what I can tell you, as somebody that's managed campaigns, that's worked on 9 different campaigns as a field director, as a campaign manager, as a candidate myself, that the best and most effective way to bring truth to people, regardless of party, is to actively go out and have real conversations with them. I'm not talking about online. Online's a start, but you really do need better community networks. And I think that's really been our problem as a party, as in general, federally and also statewide. We come in with different organizations and groups on Election Day and expect people to just reach out and understand about what we're trying to do and who we're voting for, and that is not the building of a relationship. We've had a apathy that's continued for the last 20 years because of a bad economy that's not had the same kind of wealth generation that happened in years prior. And that's led to bad politics and people looking for quick answers that might seem good. And what's been supplanted by that is organizations like the Democratic Party and others that have not had that kind of influence because they maybe didn't have that tactic or thought that you can come in only election time and actually influence different people's minds. But it's not the way it works anymore. We know that. We have to have more consistent communication with everybody. And young people from high school level on up need to have other folks that are in their friends network that know Democrats or know even people that are liberally minded that can have that conversation and that perspective. So we need to not cede the ground. We've ceded the ground. We've ceded the ground for a long time in not being in direct communication on TikTok, on Seth Rogen, on those other programs and different streams that people do congregate to. And that's where we lost them, because you can't say that we weren't effective if we weren't even there at all, because we didn't even try. So that's where I really believe the difference is. It's a small piece to an overall plan of bringing back what I would believe is a sane forward perspective on what we should be doing as a government and what we need in effective leadership. But we can't be effective from out of the country. We have to be on the ground. We have to not secede any ground to anybody and make sure that we're not going away. We're staying, we're fighting, and we're fighting through truth. We're fighting through a kindness and a perspective that in the model of Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King is a nonviolent restorative justice that brings the truth to everyday Americans and people that are part of our economy, like our farm workers and folks that are currently being impacted by hateful, racist immigration policies. But we can't do that just from Twitter alone, somewhere in France or somewhere comfy that has actual, at this point in time, better safeguards. We have to do it here. We have to bear down. We have to grunt and actually create real lasting communications and relationships with people in real life situations. So get out there. Get out there to your local Dem club. Get out there, make those connections, make friends, and talk to people that don't always agree with you.
The very media that you're referring to is available all over the world. Anyone can have an impact through the electronic communication.
True. It's not the same.
But
it is absolutely not the same.
What you just said, you said that there was apathy. During the Obama years, there was no apathy, and also
I disagree.
One of the points that I think you're passing by that has to be acknowledged, in order for the Democrats to regain respect, they have to acknowledge their mistakes in order to be able to correct them. And that is that the last election was a pure anomaly. First of all, Joe Biden was supposed to be a transitory president. Then he let his ego get by with him. Forget about his senility, okay? And then we didn't have a chance to go through the process of primarying a candidate that could win. We had to go with Kamala. Now, there's no doubt in my mind Kamala would be a lot better than Trump. She's not there, is she? The Democrats
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I think that's correct.
The law. My friend, if anyone is above the law doesn't matter for anyone at all, okay? The Democrats let Trump get by for 4 years. They had to prosecute that son of a bee. I've been advised not to cuss. For 4 years, the Democrats had a chance to prosecute him and did not do it. If you can't enforce a law, the law is meaningless. And if you can't deal with it on the highest level, no law counts.
Well, that's true. One of the big disappointments was that Trump wasn't prosecuted. But looking more forward, what's going to happen when Trump promised all these things, and he's falling down on the major thing that he got elected, that he was going to lower prices and inflation was going to go down and all this kind of stuff, and that's not happening. And I'm just wondering, and Francisco, perhaps you can comment on this. Well, you think that people will be able to organize when this, everything that, I heard it referred to, I can't remember what the senator was talking about, but he says we're going to have the great betrayal. Everything that Trump promised is not going to come true. And the people are going to be feeling betrayed and let down, and they're going to turn on him. What about that?
It doesn't matter to Trump.
It's already happening.
Trump's
in
in
there
for
your question,
himself.
it's already happening.
One person at a time, please. Francisco, go ahead, please.
But it's already happening. There are people that are storming town hall sessions in red states that are shouting at their Republican congressmen because they're voting against the basic fundamentals that we thought we would understand and be there once we retire, like Medicare and Social Security, disability services, and things like that. There were all kinds of rallies across the country on President's Day to signify that we're active and we're not going to go away, and we're going to make it very clear to all of our elected representatives, locally and also state and federal positions, that we're going to have a public discourse that will happen in the public domain, and it's going to happen wherever they want to be. So that's already happening. The Great Betrayal is already happening. I think people are starting to see that. We've already seen online that there are federal workers that had voted for Trump 3 or 4 times that were fired by a tweet from Elon Musk or by someone in Dodge, and now they're like, well, this was a giant mistake. Well, you could have told them, but if it took that, then unfortunately that's what it took to get them to see the light. But it's already happening. And the thing that I think is interesting is that Dodge is going through and cutting nilly-willy here and there without actively figuring out what is necessary and what is not, or what they want to cut is for whatever grift they believe is there. And so it's just being cut, haphazardly, and different bad things will result. But the organization is happening. It doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some time to build, but I believe we're going to change the perspective on the policies of this country by having more and more everyday people get out to those rallies, get out to different events like Senator Sanders has gone around and actively, in red states as well, made people aware that we need to get involved with actively pursuing our congresspeople every single day to not let 1 inch go by from anything that happens in this administration. And let me comment on one thing, too. Let me comment on one point about the law. I'm somebody that has a paralegal degree. That's my study. That's my undergrad. That's part of my life. And I make my income from it. And the rule of law, I think, is an important part of this because the Supreme Court did a disservice to everybody by making Trump completely immune from anything that might happen that's a core function in the presidency. Unheard of, absolutely unheard of, and against stare decisis and what we currently believe is the way that the Supreme Court should have ruled. So regarding that, that has to be pursued by our legislature. Our legislature is the most powerful, by design, the most powerful entity of our 3 systems of government. And we need to start acting like that. Our congresspeople, regardless of party and state, need to realize that not a single dollar will go to a single program unless they actually give that to it and budget for it and vote for it. They cannot cede the ground. And the Republicans don't have the majority to get anything passed right now. So we have that option. We have the legislature fixed to do it. And until we restore a Democratic president or some other person that's staying to the presidency, then we need to work on figuring out if the court can continue as it has been, because currently it's throwing out the rule of law and stare decisis, which will violate all of our rights. But we can't get there yet. We have to pressure our Congress and make sure that they stand as they have been so far.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, remember when the George Floyd murder happened, and young people around the country just came out by the hundreds of thousands and protested it. It's going to take some kind of trigger like that to bring them out. But I think once it happens, I think we'll see a lot of people, not just young people, but coming back out in the streets and protesting this. Once they start finding out, once inflation is going to go up, and once the groceries are are not going to get cheaper, and they're going to see gas is going to become a problem, and all these kind of stuff, I think we might see some really big demonstrations happening maybe 3-4 months down the line, and that's going to change things, just like the George Floyd protest changed a lot of things. I think we could change things too that way as well.
Yeah, I agree. And if they make good on what they've already promised, which is the complete gutting of the Department of Education, you could see Pell Grants go away. And that's the majority of what young people use to get into the education system. You can see federal aid for different lunch programs go away, which is a subsidy to actually feed a majority of children in a lot of public school systems. Those basic things that people have counted on for decades are going to go away, and that's something we've never encountered before. But that really hits across parties, and I think that's important, because one thing that I think Democrats often don't think about is that if you're not in our perspective, then you maybe shouldn't be considered. But these are everyday bread and butter issues for many students that don't have food security. And that is going to be a huge problem for Republicans in red states if there's going to be an election in 2 years for a new Congress that will have to deal with that fallout. And it will be on them, because if the Democrats continue to do as they have been, holding the line, not voting for any single cut that is dramatic like that, then their own people are going to have issues that are affecting bread and butter and food security. Like, for example, the state of, I believe, is Alabama, has a majority of their workers in the university system there. And one of their state senators is concerned about the DOGE cuts because it's going to cut her state education system disproportionately. Well, guess what? It will. It absolutely will. And we need to continue to turn out those voters and tell them, look, you're being disenfranchised. Your work is going to be going away because it's federally funded. That's not what you voted for. I don't believe anybody thought they were going to be voting for that on their side. But we need to be in those spaces. So, again, I circle back to Senator Sanders and others that have gone into those spaces, into states that are not Democratic or not blue, to continue that dialogue with those voters. Because online, you're not going to get that. You're going to be in your own silo and your own cycle, and people are angrier. They're angrier and more likely not to hear you when you're online. But in a real room, when you're face-to-face with somebody, you can make a bond, and you can actually start breaking some of those boundaries. So I'm hopeful for that.
And there's like farmers. Farmers were big supporters of Trump, and yet I've been reading where they're going to get screwed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're not getting paid for these programs they signed up for, and they're all concerned. Soybean farmers and wheat farmers, so much of their crop is sent out of the country to other countries, and there's going to be the reprisal tariffs, so they're not going to be able to sell their crops. And also, for example, potash, which is absolutely essential for growing of soybeans and wheat and this kind of stuff. 90% of the potash in the United States comes from Canada. So if there's a big tax put on that, these people who are such strong Trump supporters are now going to see themselves getting totally screwed by the fact that the things that Trump is doing to try to raise money and this kind of stuff to pay for these enormous tax breaks for billionaires. And I think you might have a very interesting coalition 4, 5, 6 months down the line when the things that Trump and the MAGA Republicans are doing is going to start rotting on the vines, you might say.
Absolutely. It's already happening. They're already getting out there and talking more publicly about how devastating those farmers' subsidies that are not coming now or on hold. And also with pre-care, daycare that has been subsidized. It's closed schools across the country. So it will happen. It will get worse, but that coalition will grow. But again, we have to have those conversations with those voters and actively use that frustration to encourage our Congress to protect all those programs as much as possible. Because in the end, it's not the president that has that power. It's Congress. And if Congress allows them to, they'll get away with anything. But as long as they hold the line, then we still have a fight.
Well, it seems like the Republican Congress is going to give Trump whatever he wants. You know, Trump just recently said we're not going to cut Medicaid. But that's what Congress is looking at. They're looking at the $800 billion Medicaid. I work with a hospital. I'm on the board of directors of a local community hospital here. And these are all safety net hospitals, and they rely very, very much on Medicaid. If Medicaid is bigly slashed, a lot of these community hospitals across the country are going to fold. They need that money, but the people are going to see their own community hospitals closing down because the federal government is cutting off Medicaid payments to people. And people are going to really see how this is all going to impact on their own personal lives. And I think something's going to come out of it for maybe 4 or 5 months down the line when these actions that Doge and Trump and all these people in the Republican Party are trying to do in order to get this tax cut across for the billionaires, then it's going to start affecting people. And then I think we're going to start seeing something. And hopefully young people will be one of the people leading the charge to challenge all this.
I agree. Absolutely agree. And I think it will. I mean, as everything has been, it will be, the only thing that will be uniform across all the different pain that we're going to experience is that it will hit young people very hard and actually impact their ability to transition into the middle class economy because there'll be less resources to go to college, less resources even at the K-12 level for our young students. So we can't have a middle class economy without education, and we can't have that without the ability to receive some of those federal funds to encourage it. So it's been that way, and I saw that in the recession. I saw that when we had extreme cuts by Governor Brown to save our budget. The young people led the fight. They were there in actual legislative days to encourage the government to keep what they could, to keep the transition programs from our community colleges into our higher ed so that people can transition on and get jobs and new retraining. So it will happen, but we're at the beginning of this, and so far we've had a very niche group of federal folks that have had their jobs cut, and the ramifications haven't hit that far down the stream. So I completely agree with you. I think as it continues on, this kind of strange alliance between disaffected Trumpers that were not given their job currently, and other people that know better and want to continue our programs and services will have an alliance against this administration.
Well, I remember back when I was in college, and this was in the days of Vietnam War, it was the young people coming out, demonstrating, closing down schools, closing down businesses, and all this kind of stuff that actually brought an end to the war. It's one of the things I thought about my generation. I say it's so special. We are the only generation. Look at what my generation did. We did the environmental movement, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, and we actually stopped the war. No other generation has ever done that. We actually stopped the horrid Vietnam War, and this was done with young people. And I think once young people get out there going, the other people will join in and become involved as well.
Yeah, but Lanny, qualify that statement. We stopped the war because of conscription.
True.
We've had plenty of wars since then with voluntary armies. Okay? We did it because we were forced to go.
Yeah, that's true. The ending of the draft kind of put a damper on that. That's for sure. Say, Sam, because we're getting a little low on time, you have left the country now? You're no longer in the United States?
No, I'm not. I'm in Ecuador.
You're in Ecuador.
Yes.
What's it like?
I'm in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Well, it's been raining every day. I have some tremendous adjustments. I'll tell you, the people are fantastic and the economy's great. But the biggest adjustments I've got to make are the fact that I can't drink water from the faucet. And the apartment I'm in, I'm not supposed to flush toilet paper down the toilet. Now, these might seem like little things, okay? But it just so happens that neither one of these have been mentioned on the hundreds of YouTube videos that I've watched about going overseas. Why haven't they mentioned this? I don't know. I brought a couple of UV purifiers to attach to the faucets, but I don't like the fact, I just totally object to the unsanitary management of used toilet paper being put in a trash can and carried out every day. Okay, I had to do that in Mexico in some places, and I didn't like it. It's horrible. And then what happens to it? Okay, here's a country that really depends on ecotourism, from the Galapagos to the Andes. Okay, and what happens to that? Well, it goes into a landfill, and the fecal matter on it gets recycled into the water. And then you can't drink the water. It doesn't make any sense. And what I'm adjusting to at this moment is whether or not a government can be trusted if it's not willing to provide its citizens with clean water. You know, it has a great healthcare program, far better than the United States. I mean, I could go down 20 categories of living that Ecuador and several other Latin American countries are higher and better than the United States, okay? The United States is #1 in money and #1 in guns. Be proud of it. But everything else is great healthcare system here. But they could save so much money if they had clean water. Their citizens wouldn't be going into the healthcare all the time with waterborne bacteria and illnesses. Anyway, you know, the air is clean. The people are great. The food is magnificent. The economy is fantastic. It's just those two little personal problems that I'm going to have to adjust to.
Francisco, you want to go to Ecuador?
It'd be a nice place to visit, but I love our country. I love the rule of law that we've had up until recently, and we're here to fight. This is our country as much as it is theirs. The red, white, and blue is for everybody, and it's not just for those that currently have a giant online marketplace or sell terrible electric cars that are overly priced. So we're here. We're not going to go away, and the government's going to realize that very soon in a lot more palpable efforts. So it's been hard. But
so
thinking what MLK said,
I don't want you to think that I turned my back on the United States of America. I was involved.
Well, I just want to say that the arc of justice is long, but it's been towards light.
Could you let Francisco finish?
Can't hear?
Yeah, let Francisco finish. Go ahead, Francisco.
I was just saying, the arc of justice is long, but it bends toward what is right, like Martin Luther King said. So I keep that in my heart as we continue our ability to try to go out and talk to voters and talk to new people and folks that are interested in knowing about what's happening currently. But it may not be right tomorrow. It may not be fixed the day after or the year after, but it's our fight and it's our country, and we're not going to let our country down.
Go ahead, Fram.
I just hope that you're prepared for the worst, because one of the reasons I left was because I received too many death threats from Trump supporters. I disrupted personally, individually, 5 different Trump rallies in Orange County in the past few years. Were there any Democrats with me? No. Was the County Democratic Party there? No. The LA County, the state party? No, I did it. Me, myself, and I, with a bullhorn. And as a result, with no backup, I get death threats, legitimate death threats. I'm a bleeding heart liberal Democrat. I have been ever since Watergate. But I have also kept a loaded handgun by my bed for many years, which I got rid of because I couldn't bring it down here. I hope for you don't see the worst. I see a hot civil war coming in the streets, either this summer or next summer, where people are shooting each other over these very same issues. I strongly suggest that you and every self-respecting Democrat get a handgun and practice with it and be prepared to defend your life, because I believe that it will come down to that.
I am very much opposed to guns and stuff, but, I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying. I'm really, all these MAGA Republicans, all these right, they have guns. There's more guns in this country than there is people in this country. And it's mainly going to be owned by people on the right side. So I'm very much concerned. Tell me, Francisco, how do you think, I know how you view guns. How do you think young people view the proliferation of guns in this country?
Not well. It's not something that I think brings a lot of pride to the folks that I talk to. And again, I don't want to be the person that says all young people believe this or that. But from folks that I talk to, guns is not a thing that is really that positive, because so many of our young students have had to go through active lockdowns in their schools, have maybe been affected by gun violence, have had a family member or a student or a classmate get killed as a result of gun violence. It has touched young people maybe more frequently than any other particular class in America. And currently, for very, very young people, gun deaths are the highest they've ever been, regardless of particular status or location. So it's a significant problem. I've met David Hogg. I've met those that were March for Our Lives, and others that have continued that fight over the years for sensible gun reform. And it's something that I think is going to continue to increase. But, the thing about being bleak of thinking about we're going to come to a civil war and things like that, that could happen. I'm not saying it can't. But what I think really needs to happen is we need to start to communicate with each other a little bit more effectively and actually have real conversations. And that's what I admire about David Hogg. I admire that about people in his generation and younger than me, because they actively went across this country to have conversations with people that had absolutely very little in common with them regarding gun safety or anything else politically. And that has changed views, and that has changed perspectives. So I encourage that. It's time to continue that, and it will continue on. So I put my faith in that kind of organization.
Well, I think young people understand, right now, guns are the #1 cause of death of children from 1 to 17. More than the car crashes, more than cancer, more than any disease. Guns are the #1 cause of death. And I imagine that a lot of young people know people, families, whose children were killed but because of guns. So I think that's going to affect, like you said, the view of a lot of young people. They're not going to be very positive to guns because they have seen what it's done to their generation.
Lanny, here in Ecuador, there's a lot of conflict between the narcotics and the government. And there's a lot of murder. People tell me, oh, aren't you scared when you walk out on the street? And I say, did you know that the United States averages almost 2 mass murders a day? And did you know the United States averages almost 1 of those as a school shooting every day? And no, they don't know that, because that news doesn't get out of the United States. All of a sudden, they realize I'm safer here in Ecuador with all the narco terrorists than I am in the United States. Because in the United States, I can't see it coming. Here, I know what these guys are doing. They're shooting at each other along cocaine routes, and I can avoid that. I'm safer here in Ecuador than I am in the United States.
That's very true. Gun violence in this country is just unbelievable, and the fact that people put up with it is beyond belief. But that's how powerful the gun lobby is in the United States. It's going to, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see. Trump promised to, Mexico with this agreement that they made with Trump about tariffs and all this. One of the things that Trump promised is that we're going to do something with all the guns that are going across the border from the United States into Mexico. Well, I'll believe that when I see it, because the guns industry is just
they
too
really
too
can't
powerful.
do that because it's U.S. citizens buying the guns and selling them for 10 times the price to the cartel.
Oh yeah, I know. It's just like drugs used to be manufactured in Mexico and brought up to the United States. Now guns are manufactured in the United States and brought down down to Mexico.
Exactly. But with all these Republican supporters and the NRA supporting them, he can't do anything about the guns coming across to Mexico because they are being brought across by United States citizens.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're running down. There's only a few minutes left. Listen, Francisco, is there anything you'd like to kind of wrap up with what you want to leave everybody with that you think is important for them to recognize and what they should be doing and so on?
I'll let Chris go first if he wants to.
What was that?
I'll let Chris go first if he wants to.
Chris? You mean Sam?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Sam.
No. It's your show. You're the guest. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I'm
That's
73
all right.
years old,
I've
my friend. I
appreciated
spent 50 years in politics in California.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Francisco.
Thank you for what you did, Sam. Thank you for being a part of it for as long as you were. I think it's important to remember that these things come in cycles. We have turmoil in our country in different cycles, and we're in one now. But we really do need to keep remembering that people are not isolationists in their own minds unless we allow that to happen. And so the way that they can continue is by being completely divisive, by not having any kind of real person-to-person, face-to-face contact with folks that may not understand or want to have a conversation with us, but in a very kind and pointed manner to continue to break down those barriers and to continue to get out and organize. Again, it's something that's managed and been a part of different campaigns. The most important factor for any person that was running for any kind of office, big or small, was going to every single voter in that district and talking to everybody, regardless of age, regardless of party, regardless of your orientation and your job, whatever you wanted to describe yourself as. That was important. And that's when barriers really do break down, especially locally. So I'm encouraged by that. Maybe I've been in this business for a bit too long, I don't know. But I think that's something that won't change. But it will change if we don't do it. And if we're allowing people to continue to be only online and to only hear things online, then it will, and it will get worse. So my word to everyone that might be listening tonight, regardless of whether you agree with me or not, is get offline. Get off TikTok. Get off social media for a little bit. Go talk to somebody that maybe doesn't share your opinion. And listen for a little bit. That's also really important, too. So have more conversations with real people. That's what I'd say.
Francisco, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. It's young people like you that kind of give older people like me faith that things are going to eventually work out, because I've met a lot of people just like you who are young and active and making the changes that we need to make change. Hey, Sam, thank you very much. I hope you'll join us again. Hope you had a great time in Ecuador. It sounds like I should come down and visit you sometime. Hey, thank you for tuning in to Lanny Sense tonight. We'll talk to you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Tell your friends that this is on KCA Radio, the radio station that leaves no listener behind. And this is Lanny Sense, the radio show that leaves no gender behind. Good night.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored